Well, here we see the Thunderbird's 390 V8
Yeah, it's back in the car.
is back in the car. But Eric, things aren't going 100% to plan though, are they?
No, I mean, the news is mostly good. You'll remember when it came in, it was burning oil very, very badly.
Oh yes.
And it was running horrible. And now we know it was dead on at least 2 cylinders because I had 2 push rods that were literally just fell out of place and were broken in half and half lying in the valley pan.
And here we can see the push rods on this side of the engine.
But anyway, I had it running yesterday. I think it needs some carb work. But what was more concerning than that was even though it was running on all 8 cylinders, I could hear a tick on this side. A little bit of slop in the valve train somewhere. So I took it apart and I found that this lifter is it's not pumping up. This is one of the ones where I had to replace the push rod. This is a new push rod. I'm gonna try to clean this. I'm hoping it's just a little bit of dirt in here that's stopping it from pumping up. I have not changed the oil in here yet either. I just got it running. I wanted to get it hot, let it run. I actually put a little bit of trans fluid in the oil. I was gonna let that circulate a little bit and try to clean out a little bit more goo so that when I dump the oil out, hopefully the trans fluid, the detergents, the trans fluid will take that goo with them. Not that this engine's that gooey inside, it's actually surprisingly clean for the most part. Something's definitely wrong with this lifter, so I'll see what I can do here. Like I said, the news is mostly good. It took me a long time actually to get it running yesterday. The battery that was in the car just wouldn't take a charge. So I'm actually borrowing a battery from our big blue MSP car over there. And it took me a while actually to get the power steering reservoir to seal to the pump. That was another thing he complained about that he wanted us to fix. And I put new O-rings on it and it still wasn't sealing. So I took the reservoir back out and did my typical thing where I check and make sure the bottom of it's nice and flat. Just like you saw me do with the trans pan on, what car was that? Oh, the Charger, where we had to replace the trans pan because it was all screwed up from someone torquing the heck out of the bolts. I did that with this reservoir and I did have to kind of tweak it a little bit. So, but it's not leaking now. You can still see it's a little bit shiny down there. That's just power steering fluid, or actually I should say transmission fluid, because the power steering in this car takes trans fluid. A little bit left over from yesterday, but it's not leaking anymore. Definitely not like it was yesterday. It was leaving puddles on the ground still. So yeah, I guess that's about it. If I can get this lifter issue solved, I'll put it back in and change the oil. And then, I have to fine tune the timing because of course I had the distributor out. It's just kind of in the ballpark now. I'll do the best I can with the carburetor, but I think it needs to be rebuilt. And yeah, then we'll go from there. Hopefully, knock on wood, the car will be ready to go after that. And maybe we should put the hood on too. I think the customer might appreciate that.
I think that's a good idea. Well, here we are with the 64 Thunderbird back again.
Isn't that a cool air cleaner?
That is cool, but I know you said there's something not so cool going on with this 390 V8.
It still has a little bit of a tick from the driver's side. I took the valve cover off yesterday. There was one lifter that wasn't pumped up, and it was the same one that I had to replace the push rod for, if you remember correctly. I think the customer already saw the push rods, so I don't think I kept them. I think I tossed them already. I'm sure you've got footage of it. One push rod came out of each side of this engine, and I replaced them, and the passenger bank is fine. The driver's bank is still a little bit tappety. It's probably just some crud. Now I took the valve cover off, I took the push rod out, I got a magnet and reached way down there and pulled the lifter out and took it apart and had a look at it. There was nothing obviously wrong with it. I was hoping it would be sludged up or something and I could just clean it and throw it back in, but I didn't see anything obviously wrong with it. So I took it apart and cleaned it anyway, put it back together. I actually pumped it up myself manually. I submerged it in oil and I depressed it and bled the air out of it. And then I put it back in the car and it's still tappety. So this car is getting an oil change, but the customer is out of state right now. So we're gonna be keeping this car, even though it's done, except for obviously putting the hood back on. it's done other than that until he comes and gets it in a month. So what I've done is I put about a half a quart of transmission fluid in the oil, and we're gonna run it and drive it around a little bit, and hopefully that trans fluid will work its way through the engine and clean out the crud that's stopping oil from getting to that lifter. That's probably all it is. Now, he didn't give us the budget to take it apart and go deep in the engine and try to fix that. And I don't really want to do that anyway. I mean, it's seriously, if this was my car, I'd be like, it's probably just going to clear itself up with some oil changes and some maintenance and some hot cold cycles. I feel bad charging the guy to do all that work anyway when it's probably going to go away on its own.
And that's what happened with the 71 Cutlass. The
Yep.
more that we drove it, the more the detergent did its thing. It found those sludgy bits and cleaned them out, and next thing you know, that engine, those lifters, those valves were cycling just fine again.
Yeah, and I kind of figured that would be the case. I'm gonna wash my hands before I drive this, because he said that car ran fine when it was parked, and it was only parked for a few years. And he'd owned that car for kind of a long time, and he'd taken pretty good care of it. Now, he was a young man when he first got it, so he may have been pulling hole shots or something with it, but for the most part, he'd taken care of it. This car's history is a little bit less known, and I'm sure the owner knows more than we do. All we really know is that he's only owned it for maybe a little while, maybe just a couple of years, I think. Bought it from an old guy and had been sitting in the garage for a long time.
Since 1977.
Okay, so it's sitting for a very long time.
Very long time. And again, it could have been when the engine was woken up, or the bent pushrod could have happened, and that's why it was parked.
Yeah,
We don't know.
We don't know.
But what you do know is that it still needs a little attention, and hopefully some preventative care and a little exercise is going to whip this 390 V8 back into shape.
Yeah, just like slowly waking up from a coma. That being said, I think we're gonna take it for a little bit of a drive. We've got a dry day here. We had a lot of rain day before yesterday. So whatever salt was on the roads, most of it should be off now. So I think I'm gonna start trying to exercise this car and bring it back.
And of course, get that oil nice and warmed up so you can drain it all out and take all the sludge with it. And then we'll pick this up with the oil change.
Okay.
Well, Eric, I can definitely hear that ticking sound.
Yeah, you can hear it. The hood will muffle it a little bit. I'm just gonna give it some exercise, and the more we do that, the more likely it is to clear up. Sometimes with cars like this that have been sitting for, like you said, 40 years, parked since 1977, you don't always know how far you're gonna need to go to bring them back. This could end up being one of those cars that you can keep working on until the cows come home. And I don't know if the customer's prepared for that, and we haven't scheduled for that. We got other customers, you know, it's March right now, so people are starting to wake their cars up and say, wow, car show season's coming fast, I gotta get my car ready. So we're booked out until June right now, and you know, we don't want to make any of the other customers unhappy either. We're trying to do our best.
Yes, we are. Well, we're joining Eric again with an update with the 64 Thunderbird with the 390 V8.
Some good news. So, of course, I can't know everything there is to know about every car, but I've got enough friends in the business and know enough people that I can usually ask somebody who knows. Last time we were talking about this car, we had a problem with a lifter not pumping up on the driver's side, and it was, if you remember, we took this engine apart and found 2 broken push rods. Well, the lifter that wasn't pumping up was the same valve as the broken push rod on the driver's side. Passenger side seems to be okay. So I talked to someone. I was very hesitant to just throw a lifter in this car because the cam and lifter is supposed to break in together. I talked to someone who knows engines a lot better than I do, And he told me that just dropping a new lifter in there is not anywhere near as bad as taking a used one out of the place that it broke into and putting it someplace else. And then if I bought a new lifter and just put it in there, it'd probably be okay. On top of that, he also suspected that what probably happened, we know that this car was parked in, I think it was 1977, if I remember correctly. I don't know when the owner got it running again. Probably, I'm guessing within the last year or so. So it probably sat for like 45 years. So what my friend who knows engines better than I do told me was probably what happened was that one lifter that we were having problems with is one of the ones that was open. You know, so the camshaft was sitting with the lobe pushing up on the lifter, holding the valve open for 45 years, and either it got stuck that way or the spring that closes the valve in there just lost its pressure or whatever. He told me, number one, take it out of the car, take it apart, have a look at it, see if there's any crud in there, which I already did, and I couldn't find anything. And then he said, number two, if that doesn't work, go ahead and try putting another lifter in there. So I got a lifter, I submerged it in oil and bled the air out of it myself manually before I put it in there, just because I think that's a good thing to do. You don't want to put it in there dry. So I put the new lifter in there. Here's the old one that came out. And it doesn't look bad, and there's not any horrible wear on the bottom of it or anything. That was another thing that my buddy said was, oh, well, maybe when they started it up the first time after sitting for 45 years, they started it dry and it didn't get any oil into it, and it wiped out the lifter and the lobe on the camshaft. Well, no, that's not what happened. If it was, this would be horribly, horribly just mangled. And that's not what happened. So I went ahead and I put a new lifter in there. And I am very relieved to report that it's quiet. Still has a little bit of exhaust noise, because I'm sorting out some stuff at the end of the exhaust, and the mufflers are behind the wheel wells, and they're loose right now because I'm still fitting things around. But yeah, the tick is gone. And it's not running its absolute best right now because there's tubes I gotta put back on the choke. It's got a little bit of a vacuum leak on the carb right now. Yeah, you can see it likes that when I plug up that vacuum leak. So that's something else I still have to sort. But then after that, and the exhaust, it's pretty much done. I still got a couple little tuning things I can do on the carburetor, but yeah, I'm tickled pink that it's not making that clattering noise anymore.
That is the sound of a very healthy 390 V8. You must be very proud.
Yeah, it's running a lot better than when it came in. When it came in, it was running terrible.
Unfortunately, I mean, you've rebuilt plenty of engines in your career, but when it comes to reaching out to another expert, you're never afraid to do so.
Well, no, like I said, you can't know everything about all these cars. So you just have to lean on your friends. There's still enough of a network out there of people that know things about old cars.
Especially here in Detroit.
Right, yeah, we're blessed to be in Detroit and do all this. You know, I'm still reaching out to people that know more than I do.
What an excellent update you have for us on the 64 Ford Thunderbird.
You know, I'm happy. You know, I've said this before. I like for people to, you know, have a relationship with their cars and enjoy their old cars. And, you know, the owner of this car has told us that he was embarrassed to drive it before because it was smoking so bad. And I didn't want to give it back to him smoking. I didn't want to give it back to him running bad. I didn't want to give it back to him making noise. You know, I want him to have some confidence in his car. He's waited long enough to enjoy it. I'm really hoping that we go to a few car shows this year here in the Detroit area and we see him there with this car. He goes, oh, hi guys, hey look, I'm finally enjoying my car. That's what will make me feel better than anything else.
Fantastic. Well, we'll pick this up with you when we're ready for a test drive.
We're getting very close.
Well, Eric, I'm impressed. You're a very brave man. At least I thought you were when I walked in here and saw the 64 Thunderbird on top of the 79 Chrysler Newport, and yet not a single drop of oil has gotten anywhere on that big white Chrysler.
Well, the Chrysler needs to be painted anyway, to be perfectly honest. And I didn't want to leave any customers' cars outside. You know, it's March, it's Michigan. We're getting a combination now of, you know, April showers and winter not going away because it just doesn't in Michigan. Anyway, yeah, the Thunderbird's not leaking, and I didn't think it would. It seems to be behaving itself. I spent some time on this car yesterday. Everything that the customer paid us to do, I think is done now. But I did spend a little bit of time yesterday tinkering with the carburetor, mostly with the choke. So, you know, it had a little bit of trouble starting cold, and then once it was warm, it was fine. I don't remember how much time I spent on it yesterday. It really wasn't that much, but I adjusted mostly the choke, a little bit the idle mixture and stuff like that, and it's running way better now.
When we last left off, you were reinstalling the tubes for the thermostatic choke.
Mm-hmm. And that helped a lot. I must admit, I kind of had it a little bit misdiagnosed. I thought the carb needed a rebuild, but the choke on this car, it's got like a vacuum passage through it, and it goes down to the exhaust manifold, and it sucks heat off the exhaust manifold to heat the choke. And because of that vacuum leak, it was running kind of bad, and I could tell it was something in the carburetor. And I was like, I think this needs a rebuild. And the customer's like, I already did it. And I was like, oh, well, okay. And then I hooked up that choke thing, and it worked a lot better. But I adjusted the choke anyway, just yesterday, and it starts way easier, and it runs way better cold now. And I think it runs a little bit better warm too.
Fantastic. Well, I know this was a big job. You started off, I mean, when it came in here, we had the 2 broken push rods and needing a whole new set of valve seals, and we had to clean, and then you beautified the engine compartment and solved the power steering fluid leak, pump seal.
I literally resealed the power steering pump. I bought a reseal kit for it, and I did the whole thing.
And then, of course, you adjusted the exhaust so the customer can put his tailpipes back on.
Oh, I don't want to talk about that. Here's what I did. He didn't have room to put the downpipe, the little tailpipes on, so he asked me to take the mufflers off and cut some metal off of here so that they'd come back. But, you know, I put some stuff in. When I moved the muffler that way, it wouldn't reach this hanger anymore for support, and it was just hanging. So I put just a little extension on it so that it wouldn't have all that weight just hanging. But, you know, it's not finished.
No, and we let the customer know, and he said he was fine with us delivering as is, and he'll wrap it up with the exhaust himself at his home.
I know, but I don't know. I hate charging people for work that I have to leave half done.
And that you have to put in a condition that's, you know, at least halfway finished but stable.
Yeah, well, I don't know how stable. I mean, if he was to test drive this car, I didn't tighten any of these clamps because I don't know what orientation the tailpipes are gonna go on with the mufflers. And so he may have to twist this a little bit to get everything to fit. So the clamps are just finger tight. So if he takes this for a test drive, or anyone takes this for a test drive, they go over a few bumps, is this all gonna fall apart? You know, it's just a bad situation. Makes me uncomfortable.
Well, we may have to find out with at least a short, small, slow test drive around our facility if the weather clears up. I would really like to get inside the 64 T-Bird and see exactly what it feels like to ride around in, but again, we're dealing with Michigan weather, so we don't want to take any unnecessary risks with a car this nice.
Busy man working on this thing.
Yeah.
And from what I hear, you two also.
Yeah.
Well, here we are with the 64 Thunderbird, safe and sound.
You know?
I know myself and the audience probably hoping to see us do a test drive in this, but the weather just hasn't cooperated and we were on a strict timeline here, so.
Plus, I hate to say it, but the exhaust is still a bit loose.
Exactly, and there's plenty of more things the owner is going to have to do to this car to really get it sorted out, and that was not the job we were hired to do.
Yeah. We told Gordon, you know, the mufflers are still loose. I didn't clamp them down because you're gonna have to rotate them to get the orientation of the tailpipes right. So they're literally just stuck up on there, and the nuts are just finger tight.
No cruising.
Yeah. Or if, I mean, we cruised it a little bit just to make sure it was okay-ish,
Yeah.
but we didn't go far and we didn't go fast.
It was ramp worthy.
Yeah.
There you go. So yeah, today will be the delivery date, and something tells me this isn't the last we've seen of this car.
Oh, yeah, probably not.
I'm sure he may be bringing it back to us now and again for some routine maintenance once the cruising season starts, and we'll be looking forward to seeing it again very soon.
Unless we ticked him off for some reason. Then he'll be like, screw those guys, I'm finding someone else.
That'll be determined
Yeah.
in a future episode. Okay, so we'll let Eric mosey his way over there to the driver's side, and we'll get this car loaded up here in the owner's stately house in that pretty garage. So a pretty car like this deserves a pretty garage like that. And even though the owner is in Florida, fortunately his brother is here to let us in and sign for delivery of the car today. Ford Thunderbird is now home sweet home. That's a good feeling for us. Nice to see the Thunderbird back again.
Yeah, it's nice that he's driving it, yeah.
Right in time for our 1-year anniversary as a car shop.
Yeah.
It's been a fun day.
Yeah, it has.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for bringing it by.
Off we go. Thank you, sir. If you enjoy automotive content like we do, consider subscribing to our channel or check out our website to join our VIP-only high-speed chase club for early videos and other great perks.